It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Simone Sokoloff, and your maiden name is Berneman, and you were born in Belgium.
Yes.
So if you could tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay. I was born in Brussels on January 3rd, 1943. My mother is from Antwerp. She was born in Antwerp and raised in Antwerp. She spent all her life there. And when my parents got married, they lived in my grandmother's home. And the neighbor, it was not, they got married in 41. I don't know exactly what month. And the neighbors were not very friendly. And when she got pregnant, they decided to move to Brussels, and they rented an apartment. I don't know where they got the money from. That's something I never had a chance to ask them. I didn't think of it, but now I have no idea. They found this place in a popular neighborhood with, it was an apartment, private, it was not with somebody else. And my parents and my grandmother moved there. My grandmother was a widow at the time. In 41, her husband, that's the picture. What you want this? That's my grandmother. Her name was Eva Rivlin, and she married Yechiel Ginsberg, which actually Ginsburg, some part of the family called themselves Ginsburg, part of the family Ginsberg. Anyhow, they married in, 1909 or something, 1908, 1909. That's when they got married in Antwerp. They both came from East Europe, but they got married in Antwerp. They had 4 children. My mother was the second one. And my parents, my father came from Poland in 38, I think. He had an older brother in Antwerp who was already, had a family, and he was a diamond, something. He worked in the diamond business. He had a sister, also older. She lived in Brussels. And that's it. And in 42, when things got really bad, they moved to Brussels, as I said. This was a couple who rented us that apartment, and they were like closing their eyes, because my mother saw once, she told me, that's a story that runs in the family. My mother was in the street, and then she saw and she was in the street, across the street from the house where they lived, and somebody knocked at the door. A German came and asked something. So obviously he asked, do you have Jewish tenants? And the woman said like this, do I know? Do I ask what their religion is or how they work? They're good people, they pay their rent, and that's all. That's what my mother tells. So this is something that in those days was quite laudable. And so anyhow, when I was 3 weeks old, that's sometimes at the end of January, my father was, they caught him in the street, and they took him into a place, Mlin, it's a well-known transit camp. It was a caserne along the railroad, and the train, the trains would take the prisoners to Auschwitz or other German concentration camps. So my father was taken away. He didn't tell a lot, but he did give me some books to read that I read later about the camp. Oh, not books, one book specifically about. So, we all know these stories, how they were mistreated, they didn't get to eat, etc. They had to work. Anyhow, so first I'll tell about what happened to us, because we were in the house, my mother, my grandmother, and me, a very young baby. And what my mother tells us that one day, maybe one night, the Germans knocked at the door, and I, as a baby, started to cry, and my mother gave me something to suck, and I stopped crying, and then they heard the steps, they went away, the Germans went away. So these were like more normal people. So that's the story. My mother was able, she told me she used to send my father some care packages. That she told me. He got packages and a letter. And she said something, she wrote something in a letter. I put 50 francs or a sum of money somewhere, she said where it was, where she hid it, in for the father of Simone. So that was her. Okay, that's another anecdote. Anyhow, the most important story is that what happened to my father, because he was in that camp, in that wasn't not concentration camp, but before, a castle.
Transport. It was a transport.
Before the transport. It so happened that every couple of weeks or very short periods, there were trains transporting people from that castle to the German concentration camps. And in that place also there were several. I read the book, that's why they didn't tell me all these things. I know this from books or articles I've read. There's also a movie, even the Israeli television showed, in Yom HaShoah there's always this film. Okay, so there were several people from the resistance, Jews, that ran away and were recaptured. So they had a lot of connections, and they prepared a coup to escape, to trap that transport. It's called the 20th transport. You can check it in the internet. It's all over. The Holocaust Museum in Washington has it's all mentioned. So that's a very important historical story. That 3 people from the Belgian resistance. One was a Jewish boy. The 2 others were Christians. Were just other people working for the resistance. They did a very simple, very primitive. Had a very primitive plan. They took one of these lanterns that they have, that railroad workers have, and they put red cellophane paper over it, so it would be like a red light, and they put it on the rails of the train, and the conductor of the train, the conductor knew about it, and he collaborated. He knew and he collaborated. So when he saw that red lantern on the railroad, so he stopped the train because he said, well, there is some emergency, I don't know what it is. And people, all the prisoners had been given, not all, but several of them, had been given tools and money. They all got money. The resistance had organized, they brought it all in. They had all kinds of, tricks. They brought in money and tools. So people broke the wooden planks that were on the windows. The windows were protected with closed with wooden planks, and so several people escaped. So there were three of these stops, and 231 people escaped. Very few were killed. A couple, I don't remember how many, but small number, 3, 5, 6, and they escaped. And my father escaped also. He escaped at the last stop before the German border. So he came back home and stayed home until the end of the war. So that's a very important story. It's written. You can find.
And did your father tell you this? Did your father tell you about?
My father told me that he escaped. We knew that, and he would do one more thing. That was on the Lela Seder, and he refused to celebrate 2 evenings. He only celebrated one Seder night, because that was the night that he escaped. So that was that he told us. But I gave you more details because I read. The things are documented. There were books and articles. I think Beate Glassman also. It's something, and about the 3 heroes that planned that escape. The Jewish boy, his name was Lipschitz, and another were killed. Not this particular action. They did other things and they didn't survive the war. But the third one, a Christian man, did survive the war. So that I know about that whole story, yes. Okay, so after the war...
Do you have any memories?
No.
What's your earliest memory?
I can't remember. I was 3 weeks old.
No, but what is your earliest memories growing up? Your earliest?
We were told stories, not many stories, but we knew about it. But I read, and I know my father gave me some things to read, and also yes. I don't remember anything. I do remember. I have a very, very not clear image of that apartment in Brussels, because I was already close to 3 years. But at that time, you can remember something. So that I remember, and I do remember that we came back to Antwerp to our house, because that was my grandmother's house. We got it back, I don't know who took it or what happened to it, I have no idea, but they came back to that house. And I don't know, there was one neighbor who my mother says she knows that this neighbor, how do you say, Ilshina, she gave away my mother's brother. My mother had a brother. She informed the German about him because she saw him. My mother saw her, and he was taken, and he was a cripple. He was polio survivor. He was a polio survivor. So, so right away, he didn't survive very much. And my mother's father was killed by mistake, because his name was Ginsburg. and Ginsberg, and there was the head of the resistance in France. They tried to flee to Calais. They tried to go to America. They never made it. That was in 41. That was even before 41, before my parents got married. So my mother's family tried to escape, but they never made it. They never made it to America. They returned to Belgium. But her father was shot by the German by mistake because he was apparently, I don't know, that's what they told us, because of his name. But you know, the German, they had no problem to shoot at a Jew. So in 45, I guess that's when we came back to Antwerp, and we lived in that house until 56, and then we moved to that house here.
And your parents,
My father was a diamond merchant. He was quite successful. He made a good living.
If we can just have a look at these pictures.
That's my grandmother.
And next to your grandmother...
That's my grandmother that was living with us.
And it's your parents.
And these are my parents when they got married. And these are my parents a little in the 50s, let's say. And that's the house. Well, I grew in, but not my young year. But when I was 12, that's when we moved to that place, which was a nice place. Nice modern place. That's me.
How old are you in this picture?
That was during the war. What is that? 9 months, a year?
It's amazing that these pictures...
They did it. They did. I don't have that picture, but no, I don't have it. But there's a picture of I was a little older then, maybe 2 years. Also during the war, my father took me to a photograph. I don't know.
And that picture...
That's my husband. He's American. That's the American. That's my husband's family. American.
But that little picture, that's me. And how did this picture survive? Maybe they kept it with them.
They didn't, because that was in Brussels. In Brussels, we were quite... What happened in Antwerp, a lot of things were destroyed. But in Brussels, not. What we took, that was done. This picture was taken and they kept it.
And did you...
This, I don't know how this survived. I don't know. Yes, this, I guess, I don't know. Something survived. We have pictures, not many. But in those days, people didn't have many pictures anyway. Yeah, I don't know exactly. If a lot of things were destroyed, I don't know.
And your grandmother, were you very close with your grandmother?
Yes, she lived with us. She died in 73.
And your family were...
No, not 73, sorry, 63.
Your family were...
She was 70.
Were they very traditional, very...
They were, Antwerp Jews were quite, they were not very, there was something in the middle, Jews, yes. What my mother tells me, that when they came back to Antwerp, the local shop owners knew them, of course, after 2, 3, 4 years maybe. And so one of the shopkeepers told my mother, "Oh, you're back. We thought you would never come back," or something like that, or survived, something not very nice, not flattering. Very, very, that's, we know, anti-Semites.
And Simone, what did you speak with your parents? Was it...
What language? I spoke French, but the family spoke many languages. A lot of Yiddish. My father spoke, when he came to Belgium, he learned 2 languages. Had to learn 2 languages. He spoke them both. And he spoke Flemish and Yiddish with my mother. I don't even know what they spoke. And with my grandmother, he spoke Yiddish always. But my mother my grandmother was very fluent. She came as a young girl to Holland from Russia. They came to Holland, and she met my grandfather then, who was in Antwerp. But she spoke several languages, and she knew French because she was 14 years old. She knew French. She studied in Russia French. She was very well educated, and they were in England, so they spoke English also.
And when your parents came back, did your father go back into the diamond?
Yes. Well, he came back after a couple of months, but then when we went to Antwerp, he was. I guess he started with his brother. His brother also had a story. His brother was older. He had two girls, young teenagers, and. I don't know, they did something together, but my father got independent very fast, and he was a good businessman.
And from the extended family,
Yes.
uncles and aunts, did
Yes,
any
okay.
survive?
Okay, so my father's family, so he had a brother and a sister in Belgium. They both survived the war, all of them. And but his family that stayed in Poland, he had a brother. My father was the fourth of seven, so his older brother, the second older brother, was also married with children, the whole family, and his parents, of course. And then he had three younger brothers, and they were teenagers when the war, when they were taken away. He had one brother who was 17, 18, and two others a little older. And they were taken to Auschwitz. And the youngest didn't survive. He died of typhus, I think. He was sick, he died in the camps. But the two others did survive. And they survived this terrible march when the Germans took the Jews out of Auschwitz, and they marched, and they survived. They came to Belgium. They came to Belgium because they had family there, and I don't know, whoever they took them to some sanatorium to recover, and when they recovered, they came to Antwerp. They lived there. They had families. I still have cousins.
And you were close with them? Your family were close?
I still am in touch with them. Yes, I am in touch with them. I mean, they live there. Some of the children are here, but yes, we are.
And on your mother's side?
My mother's side, she had her brother was taken away. Her two sisters, one sister, her older sister she wasn't with us, but she also came to Brussels. She didn't. My mother got married before them. The two sisters were not married at the time, and the older sister also survived in Brussels, whatever. And after the war, she met a war widow with a boy, and they got married, and that's my family. My cousin, which I grew up with, we were very close. And actually that's how they met, because we played together, this boy and me, and that's how, I don't know, maybe somebody made a sheet up with it, I don't know exactly, but I know I was told that I played with him. And the younger sister, she was born in England, because my mother's family were in London during the First World War. That's where they fled. And so her younger sister was born in London, and so during the war, before the war, she had British citizenship, and she was there during the war. She was in London, and then she came to Israel, and I don't know, she had this. There's a whole story, and then she went back. She lived in England until she died. And that's my mother's family.
And did your parents have more children? Did you have brothers?
Oh yes, I had three sisters. One of them passed away in the 70s, 60s. And my two other sisters are still there. One lives in Canada, one lives in France. No, nobody lives here, but we were in very close, touch all the time. They come here, we go there. Yes.
And Simone, can I ask, do you remember going to school after the war?
Yes,
or when you were?
Yes, I remember. Of course, I remember. I went to school. Of course, at that time that I remember, there was anti-Semitism.
Did you go to public school? Or?
Yes, I went to public school, and I know, I don't remember exactly when in the lower classes, but when I was in high school, I know that we had to, as soon as somebody would say a word like, they were easy. Dirty Jew was the word. So we reported it to the headmaster, and it was, I don't know what they did, but at least it was not permitted to say such things. It was said, but it was not permitted. Yes.
And growing up, did you feel any anti-Semitism besides from school?
Well, but nobody did anything with anti-Semitism. Were just when I grew up in those days, it was a girls' school. They were not very aggressive and everything. I don't think there was much more than a few dirty words.
And did you have a lot of Jewish friends, or was
yes,
it
only Jewish friends?
Only Jewish friends.
Only Jewish friends. Even in school, I was only with the Jewish friends. Yes.
And your parents?
Yes.
Were most of their friends also survivors?
Everybody was a survivor. Half my friends didn't have a mother, didn't have a father, didn't have this. Yes.
And it was quite rare to have a grandparent.
It was not very many grandparents around. Yes. Yes. So, and I went to Bnei Akiva, and I made Aliyah. That's how I made Aliyah.
And how old were
you?
you?
And I went to Bar Ilan, and I studied in Bar Ilan. I studied chemistry. After that, I went to Jerusalem, and that's where I met my husband.
And how old were you when you made Aliyah?
18.
18.
Well, after high school.
And your parents were happy that you
came?
No,
they were not, but they thought I would come back very soon, but I didn't. I would go home very often. Our situation was, well, in those days we came by boat, but after a few years there were planes, and we did visit. They visited, yes.
And Simone, did your parents often speak about the Shoah when you were growing up?
Not very much. They did speak. They did tell us, but they didn't speak much. Not much. And in much later years, I heard stories of my friends. We never spoke about it.
With your friends, you never spoke? Did you have friends that were also survivors or
all
hidden?
of them, everybody. No, but who was not a survivor? People who were born in 42 to 43.
They were all survivors.
That were my friends. Who were my friends?
And you never spoke with
each.
You never spoke with each other?
No, not about that. That was not. That until the 60s, nobody spoke about it. In the people did speak in the home. Everybody knew. I mean, I'm talking about the families But it was not, we didn't speak of these things. It's only after the 60s that things came out.
I think with the Ahmed trial, that was one of the, when they had the Ahmed trial, people started speaking more.
Yes.
After the Ahmed trial, things changed.
Well, I came here in 1960, and I came for the Eichmann trial. Maybe it's because of that. Maybe that's the reason. I think it's also the openness and the media and everything. Things were different then.
Do you remember the trial?
I was there. I went to one of the sessions.
And you saw him?
Yes. In his cage. Yes. But I personally didn't hear from my family. I don't know any connection with this particular person. So it was not that emotional. Yes.
And with your children, did you speak a lot about you being a survivor?
Oh yes, my children. Well, as I said, the most important highlight of the story is the story of the escape of the 20th convoy. And my oldest grandchild is named after my father, so yes.
And can I ask, your parents, after the war, did they remain religious? Did they remain traditional?
They said yes, they did. There was no I don't know. There was no talk about that kind of things. No, I have no answer to that. They remained as they were.
But they were traditional.
Yes, people didn't look back. I think people just didn't look back. Yes, we were Jews. We were not. Well, they were a little bit liberal, but that was their way. It had nothing to do with.
And do you remember going to the Beit Knesset or?
Yes, of course.
Which Beit Knesset did you go to?
Okay, so there was. So first of all, there was a Beit Knesset. I don't know. You have an idea? There was a Beit Knesset. There were two main. We lived in the center, central area that all the Jews. Was also the diamond business, and most of my friends lived close by. So there were two shuls. One of them was Van der Nest, which was a little bit more. Also, there's two community, Maxike Adas, Shomre Adas. So Van der Nest was Shomre Adas, and the other shul was a little bit more Maxike. So we were Van der Nest, and that I remember. It must have been maybe 10 years after the war they rebuilt. It was completely destroyed by the war. So that I remember, it was rebuilt, and it was a nice modern shul. The other one was still, was not so much damaged. But this one was completely destroyed rebuilt.
It's a modern shul. I've been inside.
From the German, whatever they did. I don't know, from the bombs or I don't know if they desecrated. Actually, I don't know if it was a bomb that destroyed it. I don't know.
But the community, the Antwerp community, it's a very close-knit,
very close-knit, very traditional community. Certainly in those days. And now it's, things change. I'm not there anymore, so yes.
And your parents, did they remain in Antwerp?
My parents stayed in Antwerp. They died in Antwerp. Yes.
Simone, it's amazing. Looking at these pictures, I just want to go back. That picture of you as a baby, it's actually quite incredible that it's...
No, you see, I was dressed nicely. Yeah? I remember that doll. Apparently it stayed along with me for many years.
And with your parents... And do you think with your parents what they went through, were they scarred mentally, or
I guess they were. I think my father was. You know, my father, every time we took a train, he would throw up. He was sick. Yes, but they were optimistic. You know, they were quite young, and they started a family and everything, and they did well. I mean, they had a good life after that, so they were optimistic people and happy people.
and they brought you up in a
Yes.
very
I think so. Yes,
Yeah.
I don't think it was anything gloomy.
It's amazing. So, Simone, if I can ask you, what message do you impart to your children and grandchildren?
Okay, so I would say never again, like everybody says. And this is why I came to Israel, and I came to Israel to build my own life and to know that we can defend ourselves. I mean, it's a little bit difficult to say that, but yes, we hope we can be optimistic. I have 3 grandsons in the army now, so that's this very moment. Yes.
We've gone through. What happened on Simchat Torah is the worst day that we've had since the Shoah.
Holocaust.
Yeah, since
Yes.
the Holocaust.
So that's why I was so hesitant about this interview. Yes.
Well, Simone, you are amazing, and I just want to thank you. So, if I can just,
Okay.
and I think these pictures are incredible. But Simone, really, I'm extremely grateful to you.
Thank
and,
you. Okay. So
I must just mention that, you know, it's a miracle that your father survived with the train. It's something.
He's a
unbelievable.
Ness that he didn't say something. He said it. You know, he made sure we knew it. And actually, that's the reason that I think it's important that the story should be known. And it's too bad that while he was living, we were not enough respectful of all. You know, we didn't understand that. We couldn't figure it. And you know, now the atmosphere, there's much more. Not
open.
only now, more openness and yes, and it's more accepted. I don't know. In those days, it was not. It was not mentioned. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful to you, and you should just have Mazal and Bracha, and your grandson should come back safely. And it's such a big thing that they're defending this country. It's so important, and you should just have Mazal and Bracha, and please God, we should have peace in our town as well. But thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a privilege.
Okay, thank you. Okay.